Hey guys, today I'm going to tell you about two real scary stories that happened during the summer, so grab a coffee and embark on these stories. I have always loved camping alone in nature. There was something magical about the peace far away from the busy city. Last weekend, I decided to spend a night in my SUV, deep in the forest. The air was fresh and the stars shone brightly above. I parked the car in a small clearing and set up my little camp. As the sun set, I made a small campfire and prepared a simple dinner. The forest was alive with sounds. I could hear crickets singing and the wind rustling through the leaves. It was reassuring, and I felt at peace and free from anxiety. After dinner, I sat by the fire, watching the flames and enjoying the solitude. It was around midnight when I decided to go to sleep. I put out the fire and climbed into my SUV. The back was set up like a small bedroom, with a sleeping bag and pillows. It was cozy, and I felt safe inside. I left the window slightly open to let in some fresh air since it wasn't too cold, and I lay down, ready to sleep. As I was drifting off, I heard something strange. It was faint at first, but it sounded like chanting. My heart skipped a beat. I strained to hear better. The chanting was eerie, like a distant song carried by the wind. It gave me chills. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, or maybe some animals making noise. But the chanting grew louder. It seemed to come from the forest, not far away. I sat up and looked out the car window, but it was too dark to see anything. The trees cast long shadows, and the only light came from the moon. A wave of fear washed over me. I had never heard anything like it before. I debated whether to stay or leave, but then, as suddenly as it started, the chanting stopped. The forest was completely silent again. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Maybe it was just some locals performing a strange ritual, I thought. I decided to stay put. I locked the doors and lay down again, but sleep didn't come easily. Eventually, exhaustion took over and I fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept, but I was jolted awake by a loud knock on the window. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat up quickly. My breath caught in my throat when I saw a face staring at me through the window. It was a man with wild eyes and a disheveled appearance. Panic surged through me. I let out a bizarre scream, a sound I didn't even know I could make. The man outside recoiled, startled by my reaction. He turned and ran into the darkness of the forest. My hands trembled as I fumbled to turn on the car lights. The clearing was empty, but the fear lingered. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I kept the car lights on and my eyes glued to the windows, watching for any sign of movement. Every rustle of the leaves made my heart race. I wished for dawn to come quickly. Finally, the first light of morning broke through the trees. I felt a wave of relief. I decided it was time to leave that place. I started the car and drove away quickly, my mind replaying the night's events over and over. As I drove, I couldn't get the image of that man's face out of my mind. Who was he? Why was he out there in the middle of the night? And what was that eerie chanting? Questions swirled in my head, but I had no answers. When I reached the nearest town, I stopped at a small diner. I needed to gather my thoughts and eat something warm. The waitress noticed my shaken state and puffy eyes from the sleepless night and asked if I was okay. I told her about my experience, hoping for some explanation. She listened attentively, her expression growing serious. "You're not the first person to talk about strange happenings in those woods," she said. "There are old stories about the place being haunted. People say they've seen strange figures and heard chanting at night." Her words sent another chill down my spine. I finished my meal quickly and thanked her. As I got back to the car, I realized I might never know what happened that night. But one thing was certain. I wouldn't be camping alone in that forest again. Or maybe any forest. The experience left me shaken but unharmed. I learned to respect the unknown and to trust my instincts. Sometimes, nature holds secrets that are best left untouched. And sometimes it's better to find peace in the safety of familiar places than in the heart of the unknown. I was camping alone on a cold, eerie night when I found myself lost in the dense, dark forest. It all started when I wandered away from my campsite to gather firewood. The trees, all looking alike, formed a labyrinth, and soon I lost track of where I had come from. The sun had already set, plunging the forest into increasing darkness with each passing minute. My flashlight flickered, emitting a faint, intermittent light that barely pierced the shadows around me. I felt a sense of isolation, my heart pounding loudly, echoing in the eerie silence of the forest. I tried retracing my steps, but each path I took seemed wrong and disorienting. Panic began to rise, a growing wave of fear threatening to engulf me. I knew I needed to stay calm, but the idea of spending the night alone in the forest was terrifying. I decided to keep walking, hoping to find a familiar landmark or some sign of my campsite. As I walked, the forest seemed to come alive around me. I heard twigs snapping under my feet and the rustling of dry leaves. Every sound seemed amplified in the night's silence. Suddenly, a louder snap behind me made my heart leap. I turned quickly, shining my trembling flashlight in the direction of the noise, but there was nothing there. "It's just a small animal," I told myself, trying to stay calm. I kept walking, but the feeling of being watched grew with every step. Every rustle of leaves and every gust of wind seemed to conspire against my sanity. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A shadowy figure among the trees, a silhouette moving silently in the darkness. My heart raced, and I froze in fear. I stepped back, panic taking hold of me, and the figure took a step forward. That's when I realized it wasn't just my imagination. Someone or something was out there watching me. Fear gripped me, and I began to run aimlessly. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to get away from that sinister figure. The forest was a labyrinth of shadows, and every direction looked the same. I stumbled over roots and branches, with trees seeming to close in around me like a natural prison. Behind me, I heard heavy, fast footsteps getting closer. I ran with all my strength, the cold air burning my lungs and my legs aching, but I couldn't stop. I still heard the footsteps behind me. Just when I thought I couldn't run anymore, I saw a faint light in the distance. Hope filled me, and I pushed myself to reach it. The light came from an old cabin, partly hidden by trees. I ran to the door and pounded on it with all my might. "Help! Please! Someone help me!" I shouted. The door creaked open, and an old man stood there. "Get inside quickly," he said, pulling me in and closing the door firmly behind me. I collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath, trying to regain my composure. The old man locked the door and turned to me. "What happened? Why are you out here?" I told him everything, about getting lost and the shadowy figure chasing me. The old man listened attentively, nodding. "You did well to find this cabin," he said. "Few manage to." He helped me into a chair and gave me a cup of hot tea. I took a few sips and felt a little more secure. The old man introduced himself as Henry. He had lived in the forest for many years and knew its dangers well. "You were lucky to find this place," Henry said. "There are things in these woods you don't want to encounter in the dark." I shivered, not wanting to think about what might have happened if I hadn't found the cabin. Henry was kind and reassuring, promising to help me find my way back to my campsite in the morning. "You need to rest now," he said. "You'll be safe here for the night." Despite the fear and exhaustion, I managed to fall asleep in the old cabin. The next morning, Henry and I set out to find my campsite. The forest seemed less intimidating in the daylight, but I stayed close to Henry, trusting his knowledge of the woods. He moved with confidence, guiding us through the trees. After what felt like hours, we finally reached my campsite. I was overcome with relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Henry," I said, tears of relief welling up in my eyes. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Henry smiled gently. "Just be more careful next time," he said. "The forest can be a dangerous place, especially at night." As I watched Henry disappear back into the forest, I realized how lucky I had been. I packed up my things, dismantled my campsite, and made my way home, vowing never to venture so far into the forest alone again. The memory of that shadowy figure still haunts me, but I will always be grateful to Henry for saving me that night. The forest is beautiful, but it is also a place of mystery and danger, and it's important to respect that. Here is John Dark. Enjoyed the stories? I recommend watching these other videos where I tell real horror stories that happened in the summer. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on more stories like these. Until next time.